Welcome to the Fly Culture Podcast, bringing you interviews, reviews and fishing tips. Here's your host, Pete Tyjas.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Fly Culture Podcast. I'm Pete Tyjas. I'm on the river. It's my home river. It's the Tor. It's very, very, hardly surprisingly, very, very early in the season. I'm just walking up the river now, and it's ridiculous. Well, it's about 9:30. You know, it's not the best time for fishing this time of year, but it's about 10 degrees. And to be honest, I was just too excited. I just really, really wanted to go fishing, see if I could find a trout or two. Like everyone else, we've had a fair bit of rain here. And the river's it does take a little bit of time to clear down, but it looks as though there is some visibility. I'm sort of standing on a high bank now looking down into the river, and it does look as though there is some visibility. I'm probably going to, because the river still has a bit of a push to it as well, I'm probably going to concentrate my efforts in slacker water more than anything else and see how we get on there. But it's funny seeing the river this time of year. You know, it looks incredibly stark and bare, no leaves on the trees, obviously. And then I sort of kind of, as I walk up, I imagine what it would probably be like in summertime too. But the river here, it's the Upper Tor, it's the Tor Fishing Club water, which I've been a member of for many, many, many years now. And so the river here isn't particularly big. It's probably, at its widest, probably 15 feet or so. It's a really lovely, honest little stream. It's about 5 minutes away from where I live, which is really handy. And like I say, I like heading up the system early in the season. For me, our rivers are not like some of the Welsh rivers, for example, that, you know, you're going to get large dark olive hatches and fish are going to start rising. Our stream isn't really like that. It's really the Granham, as I think I've said before, that really get the fish starting to rise. But it's just nice to be out and just be on my home river. It, like I say, it means so much to me, and I'm really feel really lucky to be able to make the short drive just to go fish it. So I've made the short walk upstream, and I've come to a pool that is very special to me. A few years back now, I wasn't very well, and after I was a little bit fitter, my friend Nick came round and said, "Come on, I'm going to take you fishing." And we came to this very spot, and I said to him, all I want to do is be able to catch a fish on a dry fly, and then I can go home. I'll be really, really happy. And it was one of those wonderful moments that I rigged up and tied on the fly, made a cast, and a fish came for it straight away, and I hooked it straight away, which I took as a really positive sign. It was a really special moment. I think I had a little tear running down the side of my face. I can't remember if Nick did now or not, but if not, I think he may have been close to it. But it was one of those really magical moments, and that's why this means a lot to me. So it's a really nice place for me to start. I've rigged my rod up. I was thinking about fishing bamboo, and apologies, Luke, I was going to fish his 7'4" weight super fast, but I've got a sense that I may need to chuck something a little bit heavier. So I went for a graphite rod, 7'10". It is a 2-weight. But it's a really cracking little rod. It's not a current rod. It's not a right on the money rod for this moment, but it seems to work really, really well. And if I'm fishing a duo, which I'm fishing today, so I've got a big caddis fly set up, and then I've actually attached it New Zealand style really to the bend of the hook, and then I've got about 3 foot of tippet from there and a black flashback nymph there, which with a little bit of colour in the water, I think it's not a bad choice. Hopefully, if there's any fish that want to play, then they may be able to pick this up nice and easily. But I'm going to get into the river for the first time, make a few casts and see how I get on. So that's the first pool fished, and I know this one, having been a member of the fishing club for many, many years now, I kind of know the little spots and the little nooks and crannies fish may be in. And it's at the sort of tail of this pool, really, that it's nice flat water. I'm sort of standing on true right bank side and looking upstream and casting up and across to my right towards the true left side, and it looks pretty flat water, but the pool there at the tail there is a little bit deeper than you actually think, and fish often do sit there and And when we do start getting much more by way of hatches, that I can often pick up a fish on a dry fly there. Looking upstream a little bit, this next little section brings back another happy memory, and it's really funny being on the river how memories come flooding back, particularly at this early stages in the season as well. And I remember I'd been fishing with my friend Toby, and we've been fishing the Torridge, and it was in April, and like I say, it's the Granham usually that the fish wake up around there. In March time, there isn't a great deal going on with the trout fishing, but there can be sometimes, but not often. And I'd been fishing the Torridge with my friend Toby. We thought we might get lucky with some Granham. We caught some fish, which was great. And I said, come on, let's head back to the Tor. And we came in here and we'd seen some fish starting to eat Granham. And we did one of those things. I don't know if you're the same, but I love sharing a rod with somebody and not sort of guiding each other, but just sort of, a bit of banter and taking the mickey out of each other when something doesn't always go to plan. But he made this cast and this fish came out, hit the Granham emerger, and I landed it for him. And I think we were fishing a one weight that I had at the time, and he managed to get in this fish very, very easily, I have to say. And it was about 16 inches or so, and it was an amazing fish for how far up the river we were. And again, a standard fare really here. If I'm catching a 12-inch fish, I'm really, really happy. So it was a really spectacular fish, and it seemed almost the right place or the right time to stop after that. So yeah, it's funny how all these sort of memories come flooding back to you when you come back to somewhere so familiar. And actually just looking up, there's a bend here, and another time I was fishing with Toby up here, I don't think he'd caught a sea trout, and I said, look, this is the spot where there may be one, and he had one really whack the dry. I remember it really, really well. We were due to head further down the river, actually, to fish properly for sea trout and swing flies and everything else. But I said, look, there's sometimes a chance with a big dry fly that you can bring one up, and something really did whack it. So that was kind of fun. So seeing that. The sun's come out, which is encouraging. So it'll be fascinating to see. This time of year, it's really lunchtime, I guess, and just after that, you're going to hope that you're going to start to see some movement. There's no real sign of any bugs on the water at the moment. The odd midge here and there, but not a great deal. Visibility, there is clarity in the water. It's nowhere near being clear in any way, shape or form, but the sun's out. It's on my back at the moment. The wind's eased back a little bit now. There's lambs in the field. It feels like a wonderful spring day. So that's a couple of pools fished. I've just come round that corner I was describing to you where Toby rose the sea trout into a really nice little run. My gut is that the water is probably a little fast to hold a fish, but that means I'll probably get proved wrong. One of the nice things when you're back on the river again is casting the line and seeing if you feel a little bit rusty. And I'm really pleased everything seems to have slotted into place really, really nicely. One of the things I'm really thrilled about, though, is my eyesight, and I can still thread the flies without needing glasses. I carry a spare pair now just in case. And I think sometimes when the light is a little bit overcast that I struggle sometimes. But at the moment, I seem to be hanging in there really well. So I'm really pleased with that. So I've got a real positive from that. The water that I'm fishing, I should have described that a little bit better, is really sort of shin to thigh deep at the deepest. I've just crossed one of the pools and I got sort of thigh deep really in it. So the water isn't particularly deep, hence that's why I'm tending to fish the New Zealand setup. I could nymph it, but I don't really want to be perfectly honest. It's just really nice casting a fly line and seeing it go out, and I'm just really enjoying that aspect of it. But like I say, the sun's out at the moment. There is a bit of a breeze that's making it a little bit cooler, but it's just really, really nice. Well, what do I know? Absolutely nothing. The little run-in I was just previously describing, I saw a little bit of slack where two areas of it actually almost join, and there was a slack run, and I just let my fly go down there, and the dry dipped, and I set on it, and it was a fish, and I was definitely more surprised than the trout was. There's no two ways about that. It's a beautiful, beautiful trout of about 8 inches or so. Looks in really great condition, absolutely stunning. I can't believe how long I've been doing this and I still shake with excitement. I'm just going to have a sit down for 2 minutes now, just take it all in before I head a little bit further upstream and have a look in some more pools. But just goes to show that sometimes following your gut, and I do describe that I didn't feel I'd have a fish there, but I had to give it a try anyway. I find it really difficult to walk past water and leave it. One of the other things I had been doing as well in this faster water was casting it upstream, relatively short line, and just jigging the dry a little bit. I was fishing, like I say, pretty short, and just jigging it, and at the end of the run, just lift the dry up really, really slowly, and obviously the nymph followed that as well. So, but this one just took it dead drifted, and yeah, I'm super pleased, super surprised, and super happy. I don't know if you're the same, but if I get lucky to catch a fish, that I always like to try and understand why I caught it and what was the reason for the fish to be sitting actually where it was, because I had it in my mind that it was going to not be in fast water, I was going to find fish. But like I said to you, that the water has a sort of a bit of colour to it at the moment, and I'm sort of standing near whereby I caught it, and it's a little bit shallower, and I wonder if the water is just a little bit clearer, and so it's easier for the fish. It's sitting in a feeding position as well, but I wonder if it's easier for the fish to actually see a little bit better as well, so there's a little bit more clarity in the water. I don't know if that's the case or not, but we all have a theory, right? So I've just fished the tail of a pool. It gets a little bit too deep, I think, for me to get up through at the moment. I can see there's been a little bit of work been done along here. There's been some fences put up to keep livestock away from the river as well, which is great news. And the club here do some amazing stuff to ensure that the habitat for the trout is, the odds are put in the trout's favour. It's not so it's nice easy casts the whole time. They're thoughtfully done. There's large woody debris secured in the river. It's really well looked after and cared for, which is nice to see. I was going to talk a little bit about my setup as well, and I said about having a New Zealand dropper, and the way I've always seen it, and I know my friends, I may be wrong, so please correct me if I am, but the way I look at it is a New Zealand dropper is something that I attach the nymph to the bend of the hook. That's how I tend to see it anyway, and when I will fish that is more likely if it feels to me that the fish are unlikely to come for the dry fly. So I'm fishing the dry purely as an out-and-out indicator. But if I think there's a chance of fish rising, then I'll go for the duo system and have a very short 2-inch dropper where I'll attach my dry to that and then have the nymph on there. And they all have their advantages and disadvantages, really. For me, the New Zealand setup, if I've got it attached to the bend of the dry fly, then I feel I'm in slightly better direct contact with the nymph, so that if a fish does take, then I can set on it pretty quickly. The slight disadvantage, and it took me years to get over this because I'd had fish eat the dry when I had the nymph tied to the bend of the hook, but I definitely noticed my hookup rate was better when I had that duo set up, so that short dropper and the dry on there. Obviously when it's there, it's not quite as in line with the nymph, so subtle takes it may not pick up. And it's interesting, I may have mentioned on previous podcasts, I remember being on chalk stream and watching a friend, I was standing on a bridge looking down, watching him fish in New Zealand setup, and grayling consistently coming for the fly, but nothing registering with the dry fly. And that's kind of where these newer Euro nymphing techniques come in, that you've got such great sensitivity and you're really in close contact with what's actually happening with the nymphs as well. So, you know, I think with no matter what, the duo New Zealand dropper, sometimes you're probably not gonna always register takes on there, but it doesn't matter too much to me. But I think that those little subtleties it may help confidence a little bit as well, that if you've got the right rig on that feels right to you, you probably fish a little bit better and a little bit more confidently as well. So that's how I kind of think about it. But those little subtleties to me do make a difference, and we'll wait and see what happens. But I'm getting to a nice little spot now. I had probably one of my nicest fish and I was fishing with a friend, and I was fishing this rod actually. It's a number of years ago, and the fish were just starting to get on mayflies, and my friend Duncan ties a really cool mayfly pattern called the Mega May, and I think it was probably the first year he'd been using it or tied it, and very kindly gave me some, and I flipped into this little bit of, it's a lovely tree, comes out probably 5 foot from the bank but holds the flow back a little bit, and there's often fish in there. This is going to kick me in the backside now I've said this, but it will often hold a fish back, hold the water back, for a fish to actually take advantage of. So I'm going to throw a few flies in there and see what happens. Like I say, I'm not expecting great shakes today. I'm just astounded I caught a fish. Very often open start of season is pretty quiet from a trout point of view, but it's been really, really enjoyable just being back out somewhere I love so much. So covered the pool and nothing going on. I've walked a tiny way upstream again, and I was looking at the sort of clarity, and I was thinking a little bit about it and trying to describe it a little bit better, and then it suddenly made me think, perhaps I should tell you a little bit more about the tour as well, as it means so much to me, and I thought you might find it interesting. It runs, I think, for about 40 odd miles or so. It starts on Dartmoor, on the north side of Dartmoor, not a million miles away from Oakhampton, and then runs down to eventually meet the sea in its sister river, the Torridge, Barnstable Way. There are some major tributaries to the tour. We've got the Yeo, we've got the Little Dart, and we've got the Mole, which is the biggest one, and that probably is certainly above where it joins the main river. Is probably a similar sort of size as the main river there as well. So that's the river. What I wanted to talk a little bit about as well was the coloration in the water, and the reason it takes a little bit of time for our river to clear up, because a lot of the farmland around here, the soil is a red colour. So it does, the river gets this sort of reddish tinge when there's been rain, and becomes very chocolatey as well, but it's sort of got that tinge to it at the moment, which in some respects, when I'm hunting daytime sea trout, I think it's never crystal clear. It's pretty close to it at times, but when I'm hunting daytime sea trout, I think that little bit of colour in the water does give me a little bit of an advantage as well. But I thought that would be interesting just to tell you a little bit about that. Also, when I record these as well, what I try and do is just say what I'm feeling at the time. So there's nothing edited. I don't make second takes. I just sort of go with what comes out of my mouth and what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling at that time. Because I think probably if you're listening to this, or if you're fishing, you probably do the same too. So I just wanted to be really transparent with what I was thinking and what I was doing. So sometimes there might be some things that don't make a whole load of sense, so I apologise for that. But I hope that gives you a sense of what I'm trying to do with this as well. But this little pool, again, it's one of those ones where it's probably 30 feet long, 25 feet long, goes against the far bank, and it's just a nice little run-in that goes to a deeper section, hits the bank and then a tree, and flows around the tree. At the back there it's a little bit deeper, but I'm wondering, given what I'd said about where I'd previously had my fish, if this is going to be a similar sort of story as well, and perhaps there is a fish in that slightly clearer water in a feeding position, perhaps looking to pick up a nymph or two. So I'll give that a try and see how I get on with that. So I'm just having a sit down for a couple of minutes really, and thinking through what's been happening so far. I tried the pool I described earlier, dead drifting the flies through and then trying to induce a fish, and it didn't happen. One of the things that struck me while I've been sitting here, well, you'd have been amused trying to watch me scramble up a bank as well, so I've had to wash my hands where I'm completely caked in mud, but managed to pull myself up. But one of the things I've been thinking about is the approach early season. I'm sort of kind of subconsciously doing it, that I'm covering water relatively quickly. I know the river takes time to warm up, so I'm just trying to find, it almost often feels as though you're looking for that fish that your fly's going right over the top of it, because I don't think they're darting around looking for stuff actively at the moment. And putting it in perspective, the river here doesn't have huge populations of trout, so we're not got lots to go at the moment. Not that I'm using that as any kind of excuse or anything, but I think I'm trying to think through the mindset of how I'm fishing and why I'm doing it at the moment, and trying to get that across a little bit as well. And yeah, I'm covering water pretty quickly, so I'm looking for where I've caught a fish, but also where I think a fish might actually be. And I've got a couple more pools to go at, and then we'll see how we get on from there. This pool that I'm standing at the moment, funnily enough, where I started the podcast, where I said I fished with Nick, this is actually where we got out, and we had a really nice session here. And, you know, I think out of this pool, and I think we had 2, 3, 4 fish. It was really good to us. It's a longer pool by this stream standards, that's probably 30 feet long. I'm standing on the true right bank, so looking upstream, the flow's going down the right side of the bank there. It's a really nice one, and I know in a month or so's time that I'm probably going to be picking fish up through here as well, and particularly, as I've said before, when the granum are going. So I'm going to give this a go with the duo. There's one little spot just up from here that I'll give it a go, and then I'll have a wander back and have another think through of what's happened in this morning's session. So I've fished the longer pool, probably in my very humble opinion, a bit too quickly. Just above this one, there's a tree, great old oak, that comes out, and I guess where the roots and where time has worn away a pot. And it's one of those ones you could easily walk by. It's probably, I'm looking at it now, and it's probably only 10 feet long, if that, not even that probably, and probably 5 feet wide. And I've had some really fun fishing in this pot, and I think I probably fished the pool previously too quickly because I was excited about seeing this one, and unfortunately the river's just a bit too strong for it to, it's sort of the water's running over it and through it really quickly, so there isn't like a pot as such. It's just a pretty fast run of water. But once that river drops a little bit more, it's a really great little place to pick up fish, and it's one you might put 1 or 2 casts in if you spot it, but you may easily walk past it. But spending a bit of time on there, I remember sitting watching fish, and I was amazed how many fish were actually sitting in there by our standards as well. So, yeah, I didn't play the last 2 pools as well as I possibly could have done. But I've only been on the river a couple of hours, but it's just been perfect. It's that real shot in the arm. We've been really busy. When you're listening to this one, sort of the weekend, we have the magazine delivered, which means Emma and I sort of take it off the lorry, unpack each box, then pack all of the magazines into the envelopes, put the stickers on, repackage them again. So we've been busy doing that over the weekend, and the social media that goes with it. I'd like to say a huge thank you to everyone as well for supporting us. The print run has gone up quite dramatically again for this issue, and it's going really, really well. So I really have to thank you so much for supporting, believing, and enjoying what we're doing. From all of us, really. It's just been such a pleasure to put Fly Culture together, and for me this is kind of that special time, because when this goes out, the first copies of the spring edition will start appearing either the day this goes out, the day after, or the Monday, and it's really thrilling to see the feedback from people as to whether they've enjoyed this one or not, and I'm really proud of this, as I am of all of them. You know, we don't put it out, we don't have a stronger issue other than over others. We try and make every issue the best that we possibly can, and I really love this one, and hope you enjoy this one too. So I'm going to make the walk back now. It's been, like I say, it's just been really cool to be, first of all, back on the river again, and the river's been good to me in that couple of hours. You know, often this time of year, I'm not really expecting to catch a great deal, and I've sort of had in my mind really that I really wouldn't bother targeting the trout until sort of April time, and concentrate on the salmon. But the river where we salmon fish, where I did the previous podcast with Emma, is still just a little bit big. And if it's got some colour in here, then it's going to be worse downstream at the moment. The river is starting to drop back, but we'll probably hit that in the next day or two, conditions allowing it. But it's just been a pleasure to be back on this little stream, the place I call my home water. I hope if you are listening to this, what you kind of get what I'm talking about and what it means to you, and the familiarity of your home water is one of the really cool things. And I think I said on the other podcast as well, often when you come back after the layoff when the season starts, because we don't have grayling in the river here, that it is that sort of long layoff. You wait and see if the river's the same, if the pools have changed a little bit. And it's pretty much as I remember it, which is really, really cool. And it's just been nice to see those spots. I probably only fished half a dozen pools, if that. But that's been enough for me, and I've really enjoyed it. So I hope you've enjoyed listening to this one as much as I have been talking to you about it. And I've done my best to try and describe everything, what I'm doing, a few thoughts as I go along the way, and hope you enjoy this one. So as ever, there'll be plenty more podcasts coming very, very soon. But thanks very much indeed for listening.
The Fly Culture podcast is brought to you in association with Fly Culture, a quarterly print magazine. For more information, please visit flyculturemag.com. You can also find Fly Culture on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter.